Nobody built anything in The Walking Dead like Negan built the Saviors. And the fact that we spent 8 seasons rooting against him says more about us than it does about him. And if you're new here, I'm Jen. I translate bad leadership into plain language using stories and people that you already know so that you can lead differently. And today, I am making the case for the guy that we were supposed to hate. And so, this is not a defense of Negan's methods, right? This is an honest look at what effective leadership actually requires. And by the end of this video, I think you're going to be a little uncomfortable. Because some of what made Negan effective is exactly what the leaders that you admire have too. Before Negan, the Saviors were not an organization. They were survivors, right? They were scattered, they were desperate, they were dangerous in the way that scared and hungry people are dangerous. And Negan was able to turn that into a functioning society, right? Supply chains, a tribute economy, organized protection, a clear hierarchy, right? Roles, expectations, consequences. He did not find a community and move into it. He did not inherit a structure someone else built, right? He constructed one from the ground up in the middle of the apocalypse, and it held together long enough to become the dominant force in the region. That is not nothing. That is incredibly extraordinary. Compare that to Rick, who found Alexandria already standing, who found the hilltop already farming, who found the kingdom already organized, right? Rick's genius was alliance building, connecting structures that already existed, and that's valuable. It's also a completely different skill set, and it requires a lot less than starting from zero. Negan's operation ran because of structure, right? There were rules, there were roles, there were consequences, and critically, the system did not depend entirely on Negan being in the room for every decision. The Saviors knew what to do, right? They knew the code. They knew the expectations. That is the organizational design. That is scalable leadership. A leader who builds a system that functions within them is more advanced than a leader whose team cannot function without them. That is true in the apocalypse. It is also true in your office. Leadership in a crisis requires the ability to make a call and then commit to it, not agonize over it publicly or revisit it 3 episodes later, right? Make the call. Negan made calls. He made very hard calls, fast ones, right? Ones that he did not walk back. And that clarity, even when it was brutal, created a kind of stability that is really hard to manufacture. When the person at the top is visibly conflicted, the people behind them feel it. And in a dangerous environment, that uncertainty really costs you. And Negan's team always knew where he stood. That is not a small thing at all. Negan had a code, and he enforced it against his own people, not just the communities under his control. That's a lot harder than it sounds, right? Because the higher someone is in a hierarchy, the more pressure there is to let things slide for the people closest to power. And so most leaders, if they're being honest, have rules that do not apply equally, but Negan's did. And in a world with no courts, no HR department, and no external accountability, the fact that he held his own inner circle to the same standard as everyone else is notable. Now here is where I redirect this, because this isn't a Negan fan video, and I am not losing my mind. The reason that Negan's leadership ultimately failed is not that he was too strong or too divisive or too structured, right? It is that every one of those genuine strengths was in service of control instead of growth, right? And so vision without trust is a threat. Structure without safety is a prison. Decisiveness without input is arrogance. And consistency without compassion is just a fair cage. Negan had the blueprint for something extraordinary. He just built it pointing in the wrong direction. And so the real question, the one that should be making you a little uncomfortable right now, is this. Which of those leadership qualities do you actually have? And what direction are you pointing them? Because the skills Negan had are very real skills, right? And they are absolutely worth developing. The difference between a great leader and Negan is absolutely not the skill set. It is the answer to one question. And that question is, who is this for? Negan was a more effective leader than Rick in almost every measurable organizational sense, right? He was also a terrible human being who built on a foundation of fear. Both of those things are true. Leadership effectiveness and leadership ethics are not the same conversation, and the sooner that we can hold both of those at the same time, the more honestly we can look at ourselves. So, which Negan quality do you think is actually worth developing? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe if you want the kind of content that makes you defend your answer to yourself first. We do have one more Negan video this week, and I think it's going to hit different. So, subscribe, like, all the YouTube things. I will see you in the next one.